You know, it's very hard these days to find anything unique in the pickleball world. Everybody's doing the cookie cutter pickleball paddles. A lot of places are just going to China and just buying paddles off the shelf. I always look for paddles that are different, that have been engineered different, that I can tell somebody has put some work into. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the Sword and Shield Honolulu Pickleball Company pickleball paddles. I don't have all the models, but I think you're going to want to hear about these paddles. Stay tuned. So the first thing I noticed when I saw these paddles were they were a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit more of an extended review here. I'm going to talk about each of the paddles in this line. A couple of the paddles I do not have. I'll talk a little bit about them to let you know what they are and what they're available for. I want to talk about just some of the engineering that's in this, some of the design concepts, and some of the things I just truly appreciate about this paddle line. What attracted to me to this paddle was its shape. Couple things that were different about it. One, it's obviously got the throat hole, right? We've got the throat hole here, a little bit different, you know, that's kind of like the Selkirk. Selkirk kind of started that trend, but it's got the throat hole here. But then the other thing it has is these beveled edges here. And these edges are not quite round. They actually come down a little bit, and it just made the paddle look unique to me. I just liked the look of the paddle. It looked tough, right? So I like the look of the paddle. The other thing that I thought was absolutely unique about these paddles, which is very hard to do, is that this center grommet here just comes out. This is a little weight dampener, and you take out this dampener here and you actually change the weight and the balance of this paddle. So you increase the twist weight when you put it in, you increase the dampening effect, you increase the static weight, but it dampens even more the ball when a ball bounces off the paddle. So you feel less vibration into your hand when you put the dampener in place. What does that do for us? Really, that stabilizes the paddle, so it'll make it feel a little bit more head heavy, but it would dampen the shock, absorb the shock of where the ball hit. I'm always a little skeptical when there's moving parts on a paddle, because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, does it change the play that much? Is it worth it? Does it change the feel of the game? And is it done right? So for example, with the grommet in, this has a swing weight of 128 and a twist weight of 6.14. With the grommet out, it has a swing weight of 124 and a twist weight of 592. So it adjusted fairly decently by putting the grommet in or out. So it makes it a little bit more head heavy with the grommet in, a little bit more head neutral with the grommet out, and then that can adjust your play style there. And so I've played all of these with the grommet in, the grommet out, and it depends on what kind of game I'm playing. If I'm playing a purely defensive game, like I'm playing against bangers, I love having the grommet in because I can just defend, reset, and frustrate them with my resets. But if you look at what they've done here in these edges, they have done a really good job. They've finished all the way in here. So this looks really clean and really nice. So I was a little skeptical at first. I was saying, okay, how did they make it look underneath? But when you take the rubber grommet off, so you can see the rubber grommet here, like it's just a little piece of rubbery plastic here. When you take that out, it looks nice and finished underneath. So you can see that. So I appreciate that. The other thing that's unique about this paddle is the Sword and Shield is a little bit reference to their faith. They have a verse here, John 3:16. So I'm not going to tell you what that verse is. Look in the description below. I'll have that verse posted for you. I always think it's cool a company standing by their faith, but the Sword and Shield is a reference to the Bible, and it's talking about the sword and the shield of the Bible. Very unique. The shape of the paddle was really cool. It had the dampener here, which I thought was really cool. And then the last thing that I noticed on this paddle line that was super impressive is that every single paddle in the line has a long handle. We're talking about a 5.5 all the way to a 6-inch handle. Look at the measurements here. The other cool thing about it is with this long handle, if you look at the way this handle holds, so this one here is one of the 6-inch handles, but if you look at the way this fits, it's almost perfect the way your finger fits right down the angle of this, where this paddle goes here. It just fits. And it's such a comfortable two-handed backhand. I don't even have to do an overlap here with a 6-inch here. I can do a two-handed backhand. So I thought that was unique across the line. And then they all have the 4.125-inch handle. So they're 16-millimeter paddles, but they also have a very smaller handle. They've done a good job of tapering the handle in to make it usable by male and female. So it's a 4.125-inch handle. That makes this very easily maneuvered and handled by everyone. So when we look here at the lines, we've got the J1 and the J1H. I've got the J3 and I've got the J5. Now there apparently is a J2 and a J2K. The J2 is the hybrid shape. That's the one that looks like the double black diamond. And the J2K is the Kevlar faced one that looks like the double black diamond. So that would be like the ruby. That's the kind of the double black diamond and the ruby competitive paddle here. This paddle here, the J3, is shaped very much like the Scorpius, but this has a longer handle. This has a 6-inch handle. So when you look at this guy, even though it has a low swing weight of 111, this has a very long handle and is a super stable paddle. This J3 here has the Toray carbon fiber. So does the J2. The J2K has the Kevlar. And the J1 has the Toray carbon fiber. These are all thermoform unibody, edge foamed, everything like the normal Gen 2 paddle. But the difference is they've got this throat hole, which they call the PowerFlex technology. So these are the 3 different colorways that they offer. They offer the black, they offer the gray, and they offer the white and black, which another thing that I just thought aesthetically, I thought these paddles were very pleasing to the eye. One cool thing about these paddles, before we get into the metrics and before we get into the performance of it, which I'll show you guys in a minute, these 2 paddles here, I have a proprietary raw composite face. So these are not Toray carbon fiber. Independent testers have tested all of these paddles for spin. The J2 and the J3 are around 1700 as far as the spin goes, but all of the other ones are 1900 and up. The ones with the raw composite face here, the J5 and the J1H, these guys got over 2000 RPMs on the speed test. So these are top tier, like 98, 99 percentile as far as spin goes. All of that being said, cool aesthetics, cool handle, cool shape, cool looking design, good skin texture, good materials. Do they perform? Can they play well? And do you enjoy playing them? Let's take a look at some of the shots I was hitting here. So first, I always start by grading a paddle by looking at its serves and its serves returns. So I've played all these paddle models. I actually lean towards the J5. I love the extra length. For a 17x7 paddle, this is one of the most controllable long paddles I've ever played in my life. And I've played all the way back to the blades and Engage. 6 years ago, I've played all the extended handle ones. I've played all the ones, all the blades that have come out. I've pretty much played them. This paddle here is one I lean towards because I like the extra length at the kitchen to be able to get some balls out of there. Also, as the top spinning paddle out of all these, this one rated the top spin because of the way you can swipe with the length on here. Let's look at serves and serve returns. That's how I typically start with a paddle. How hard can I swing? How hard can I serve? How hard is it to get the return deep into the back third of the court right off the bat? Here, take a look.
When I play a paddle, I like to see how deep I can get the serves and serve returns. You can see I'm painting the back lines right off the bat with these paddles, like really able to keep the players back that I'm playing against. I really feel like you can, because the power of these paddles is just medium. It's really not super powerful paddle, but really controllable, really great spin on the H and the J5 and the J1H. And like because of that throat and the lack of vibration, these paddles feel so plush.
So as you can see, pretty easy to get the ball deep, to serve the ball where you want. Now, these are not power paddle. These are pretty decent power paddles, meaning that they have a high swing weight. These are all over 8 ounces. So if you do not like heavier paddles, these all are starting out over 8 ounces. But if you're playing your paddles at 9, so like that, you're going to only have to add a very little lead tape to it because the balance on these paddles are pretty great, especially with the grommet in. The cool thing about the grommet is also it changes the twist weight. So when you put the grommet in, the twist weight goes up pretty significantly. Now let's look at the most important shot in pickleball, which I believe is the drop shot. You need to be able to hit a drop shot with any paddle you play to be able to get up to the kitchen and get into the dink battles to win the game up there. So especially at the higher levels, the game is won at the kitchen. So we want to make sure that we can get to the kitchen by hitting soft shots, defensive shots to get us up there. So let's take a look at the performance here with drop shots and resets.
So mostly I like grading paddles on how easy they are to get the third shots and get up to the kitchen like that right there, and how good they are at the resets. I find that these paddles really pass with flying colors in this regard, really able to just do what you want with the ball as far as touch goes, just able to really just hit it softly, get up to the kitchen, and then really be able to put spin on it, like the spin that I just hit there. It's noticeable that this one here is the H. Tons of spin on this paddle.
I was super impressed with the drops and the resets from these paddles. These are super controllable paddles. I would not put these in the power category, although the cool thing about this PowerFlex technology is when you speed up, the harder you speed up, you'll get a little bit more of a rebound from inside the paddle, almost like the new Yola with the Flex Core technology. Because of this gap here, when you hit inside this paddle, you will get a little bit of a springboard effect here because of the way this is framed with the unibody construction. So you'll get a little bit of whip on there, but not like the Yola. These are not power paddles. I would put these in the all-court paddle ranges for you to use compared to all the other paddles I've hit. But the drops and the resets were ridiculous. I felt like I just started playing with it it, and it was like it had been in my bag for months. Let's look where the rubber meets the road, the dink battles. How do these paddle lines perform in the dink battles? How does it do when we're really grinding away in the kitchen? Let's take a look at the kitchen play.
I say it all the time. Let's see how the paddles perform in the kitchen. That's really where the money is at. That's where the game is won at. And man, I loved these paddles in the kitchen. I really just was able to put the ball wherever I wanted. Like if you just watch the way I'm moving around Mark when I'm playing against him, and just able to just kind of put the paddle out wide, then move it inside, and then just really be able to hit marks. And even just hit soft shots like that up next to the net with these paddles, I thought was really one of the things that just makes these stand above other paddles. And with the shape, it really feels like all the way out to the end, it really doesn't have a lot of dead spots. Like, yeah, it loses power on the edges of the paddle, and it loses power right above the hole where the vibration dampening is the most. But it's not dead there, if that makes sense. Like, it's controllable. It's less power, but it doesn't feel dead to me. So it's still a live spot on the paddle. But just really appreciated this in the dink battles and able to really put pressure on my opponents and win some dink battles and really just stay in there a long time, and really never felt uncomfortable at the kitchen with it. Really felt like I could battle with anybody there as long as I get a paddle on it. And was even able to do some top spin and some cut dinks with it because of the spinning ability of these paddles.
The only knock on control-based paddles is the power. Does it have power? Does it have pop? Can these guys drive the ball and get us any kind of offense generated there from that or the power game? Or can it get anything from the kitchen, the putaways, the counter punches? Does it have enough pop to get us out of trouble? Let's take a look.
So I wouldn't put these paddles in the power category. I'd put them in the all court, or leaning more towards the control category. But when you take the grommet out, they're still really stable, and they get a little bit more powerful, a little bit more pop, a little bit more power when you take the grommet out. A little bit more vibration in the hand, but not unpleasant, so it's not jarring. But you can see there, like, that was the reach of that 17-inch paddle for me to get that one back on Mark. I caught it way out on the end of the paddle. But really enjoyed these paddles at the kitchen, and defensively, they're top-notch.
Overall, I got to say, I really enjoyed playing these paddles. Thank you, Honolulu Pickleball Company, for sending us these paddles. And thank you for those of you that are using our code. That helps us keep the lights on, helps us bringing you these great reviews. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed these paddles. These paddles have made it into my bag. When I am having a hard time controlling some of the paddles I'm playing with, I will reach for one of these because I feel like I can just slap it into my game and it can help stabilize me. Now, the cool thing about these are a Gen 2 carbon-faced thermoformed unibody paddle, right? It's got all the bells and whistles of a Gen 2 paddle. But I will tell you this, they do not feel like Gen 2 paddles. They feel soft. That's one of the cool things I think about it, is that you're not losing the power, but the touch, because of the way this hole does and because of the way this frame flexes, because of the way they've designed this paddle feels flush. All of these paddles feel plush. They feel controllable. They feel like you can just pick the ball up and throw it where you want it to go. Great dwell time on these paddles. So while it's a Gen 2 paddle, it performs and feels like it's soft like the Gen 1 paddles when it comes to the touch and the feel of the game. I would say these paddles are not for you if you need the paddle to generate all the power for you. These are not on the power spectrum. These are not high power paddles as far as the metrics go. But if you are a control player and you want a paddle that performs really well and is affordable, the other thing about these paddles is they're super affordable. You get a pirate discount on top of that by using our code. Appreciate you guys using that code. So let me show you the retail prices on these paddles, and then I'll show you what it looks like once you use our code. We'll pop our code up here on the screen and you look at this. I think these paddles are phenomenal for the price. I still have not hit the J2 or the J2K. I'm going to be hitting those as soon as I get them, and then I'll follow up with a review there. Leave your comments below if you want to know anything more about these paddles, and if you don't like these paddles or you want to check out another brand, check these out.